California's business tax revenue didn't just decline, it didn't just miss projections, it collapsed. We're talking about a multi-billion-dollar hole that opened up so fast that the governor's office is scrambling to rewrite budget forecasts in real time. This isn't a slow burn. This is an overnight implosion that's forcing Gavin Newsom to confront a reality he's been denying for years. The businesses that fund California's government are leaving, and they're not coming back. I'm Daniel Brooks, and on this channel we cut through the spin and follow the money to find out what's really happening in America today. If you value independent journalism that doesn't pull punches, hit that subscribe button right now. Smash the like button so this reaches more people who need to see it. And here's my question for you in the comments. Do you think California can survive without its biggest taxpayers, or is this the beginning of a fiscal death spiral? Drop your answer below because I want to hear from you. Share this video with everyone who needs to understand what's coming. Here's the thesis. California built a government so large, so expensive, and so dependent on a small number of high-income earners and profitable corporations that when those businesses and individuals started relocating to other states, the entire revenue model collapsed. This isn't about politics. This is about math. This is about incentives. This is about what happens when you assume your golden geese will stay in the coop forever, even while you keep raising the cost of feed. I'm going to walk you through exactly how this happened, the timeline, the decisions that led here, the staggering numbers involved, and who's going to pay the price for the biggest fiscal miscalculation in California's modern history. Let's go back to where this really begins. For years, California enjoyed a revenue boom. Tech companies exploded, stock markets soared, capital gains flooded into Sacramento. By 2021, the state was sitting on a record surplus, more than $90 billion in excess revenue. Gavin Newsom didn't save it. He didn't build a rainy day fund large enough to weather what was coming. Instead, he expanded the budget. He launched new programs. He increased spending commitments that would require permanent sustained revenue to maintain. The assumption was simple. The money would keep flowing. The tech sector would keep printing profits. The wealthy would keep paying California's sky-high tax rates because where else would they go? Then the warning signs started appearing. In late 2022, major corporations began announcing headquarters relocations. Oracle moved to Texas. Hewlett-Packard Enterprise went to Texas. Tesla, one of California's most iconic success stories, relocated its headquarters to Texas. Elon Musk himself moved. But these weren't just symbolic departures. These were billion-dollar revenue sources walking out the door. Each one of those companies represented not just corporate taxes, but income taxes from thousands of high-paid employees, property taxes from owned real estate, sales taxes from local spending. When a Fortune 500 company leaves, it doesn't just take one revenue stream. It takes an entire ecosystem of taxable economic activity. By early 2023, the data started rolling in, and it was ugly. California's Franchise Tax Board reported that net out-migration had accelerated. But here's what made it catastrophic. It wasn't just anyone leaving, it was the top earners. California's tax structure is extremely progressive, which sounds fair until you realize what it actually means in practice. The top 1% of earners in California pay nearly 50% of the state's income tax revenue. Let that sink in. 50%. So when high earners leave, they don't just take their own taxes. They take half the state's funding model with them. In plain language, California built a mansion on a foundation supported by a handful of pillars, and those pillars started cracking all at once. Then came the fiscal year 2023 budget projections. In January 2023, Newsom's Department of Finance released revised forecasts. They acknowledged a deficit, not a collapse, not a crisis, just a $22 billion shortfall. They called it manageable. They said it was due to stock market volatility and a temporary dip in capital gains. The message was clear. This is a blip, not a trend. We'll smooth it out. But behind closed doors, the numbers were far worse. The Legislative Analyst's Office, California's nonpartisan fiscal watchdog, started sounding alarms. They pointed out that the revenue decline wasn't just about market performance. It was about structural loss. Businesses and taxpayers were gone. They weren't coming back when the market rebounded. By April 2023, the real picture emerged. Corporate tax receipts were down 32% year over year. Personal income tax collections, which make up more than half of California's general fund, were down 18%. And this wasn't a national trend. Other states were seeing revenue stability or even growth. Texas, Florida, Tennessee, states with no income tax, were reporting surpluses. They were gaining the exact businesses and residents that California was losing. Translation: this wasn't an economic cycle, this was a competitive failure. 6 days later, Newsom held a press conference. He didn't call it a crisis. He called it a revenue adjustment. He proposed cuts to certain programs, delays in planned spending increases, and tapping into reserves. But here's the problem. California's so-called rainy day fund, the one that was supposed to protect against exactly this kind of shock, wasn't nearly large enough. After accounting for constitutional requirements and restricted funds, the state had less than $24 billion in accessible reserves. That sounds like a lot until you realize California's general fund budget is over $200 billion. The reserve covered barely 2 months of operations, and the deficit was growing. Within weeks, the dominoes started falling. First domino: small businesses. California has the highest state income tax in the nation, topping out at 13.3%. It has some of the highest commercial property taxes, the highest gas taxes, the highest regulatory compliance costs. For small businesses operating on thin margins, the departure of big corporations meant fewer customers, fewer contracts, and less economic activity. Retail stores in Silicon Valley started closing. Restaurants that relied on tech workers cut hours. Service providers lost clients. These weren't massive taxpayers individually, but collectively they represented billions in sales tax, payroll tax, and local revenue. When they started failing, cities lost funding. Second domino: public sector unions. California's government is heavily unionized. Pension obligations alone consume a staggering portion of the state budget. CalPERS, the state's public pension system, has more than $400 billion in liabilities. When revenue drops, the pressure to cut pensions or benefits becomes unbearable. But public unions are politically powerful. They fund campaigns. They mobilize voters. Newsom couldn't afford to alienate them. So instead of cutting pension costs, he tried to protect them, which meant the cuts had to come from somewhere else. Third domino: social services. California has the largest homeless population in the country. It has the highest cost of living. It has massive Medicaid obligations. When the budget craters, these are the programs that suffer first. Newsom proposed cutting billions from homelessness initiatives, delaying healthcare expansions, and reducing environmental spending. But here's the irony. These were the programs he'd championed. These were the policies he'd used to build his progressive brand. Now he was gutting them to cover a revenue collapse caused in part by the very tax and regulatory policies that drove businesses away in the first place. Think about that for a moment. The same government that promised comprehensive services and ambitious social programs is now slashing those programs because it can't keep the taxpayers who fund them. Before we continue, I need you to do something critical. If you're getting value from this deep dive into what's really happening in California, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. This is the kind of reporting the mainstream media won't give you because it doesn't fit their narrative. We're going to keep following this story as it develops, and I need you in this community. Also, drop a comment right now telling me, what state are you watching this from? I want to know if you're seeing similar problems where you live. All right, let's get back to the collapse. By June 2023, the California state legislature was in crisis mode. Republicans, who hold a minority in both chambers, started demanding accountability. They pointed out that they'd warned about this exact scenario. They'd argued for tax reform, for spending restraint, for policies that would keep businesses competitive. They were ignored. Now, with the budget in freefall, Democrats were scrambling to find revenue anywhere they could. Some proposed new taxes on the wealthy who remained. Others suggested closing corporate tax loopholes. But both strategies face the same problem. You can't tax people who've already left. Here's where the legal and regulatory machinery made everything worse. California has some of the most aggressive tax enforcement in the country. The Franchise Tax Board actively pursues former residents who moved to other states, auditing them to prove they're still California residents for tax purposes. The rules are insanely complex. If you own property in California, if you have business interests, if you spend more than a certain number of days in the state, California claims you still owe taxes. This creates a chilling effect. People who might have kept a foothold in California cut all ties completely to avoid audits. Businesses that might have maintained satellite offices closed them entirely. The aggressive enforcement designed to protect revenue actually accelerates the exodus. Then, in August 2023, a bombshell report dropped. An independent fiscal analysis revealed that California had lost more than $340 billion in adjusted gross income from outmigration over the previous 5 years. $340 billion. That's not revenue, that's taxable income. To put that in perspective, at California's top tax rate, that represents more than $40 billion in potential state tax revenue gone. And it was accelerating. The report showed that the wealthiest counties, San Francisco, San Mateo, Santa Clara, the heart of Silicon Valley, were bleeding high earners faster than anywhere else in the state. Translation: the economic engine that powered California's budget is sputtering out. Now let's talk about the human cost, because this isn't just a spreadsheet problem. Meet Maria. She's a single mother working as an administrative assistant in San Jose. Her company, a mid-sized tech contractor, just lost its 3 biggest clients. All 3 relocated to Texas. Her hours were cut from 40 to 25 per week. Her health benefits are gone. She's trying to figure out how to pay rent in a city where the average 1-bedroom apartment costs $2,800 a month. She can't afford to move because she doesn't have savings. She's trapped in an economy that's collapsing under her feet. And the state government that promised to protect workers like her is cutting the very programs she needs to survive. Or consider James. He owns a small manufacturing business in Orange County. He employs 32 people. He's been paying California's high taxes and navigating its regulatory maze for 15 years because he believed in the state. But his largest competitor just moved to Nevada. No corporate income tax, no inventory tax, lower workers' comp costs. His competitor can now undercut his prices by 15%. James is facing a choice: move the business and lay off his California workers, or stay and watch the company slowly die. He's losing sleep. His employees, people he's known for years, have no idea what's coming. These are real people, real families, real consequences. This isn't abstract fiscal policy. This is the cost of a tax and spend model that assumed the golden age would last forever. By September 2023, Newsom's administration released another revised budget forecast. The deficit had grown to $31 billion, not 22. 31. In 6 months, the hole had deepened by $9 billion. The governor's office tried to spin it as conservative forecasting, accounting for uncertainty. But the truth was obvious. They had no idea how bad it was going to get because they had no idea how many more businesses and taxpayers were planning to leave. Meet David. He's a firefighter in the Central Valley. He's worked for CAL FIRE for 19 years. He was 3 years away from full retirement. Now the state is talking about pension reforms, benefit cuts, changes to retirement age. His plan was simple: work until 60, retire with a decent pension, spend time with his grandkids. Now he's looking at working until 65, maybe longer, with a reduced pension that won't cover his cost of living. He did everything right. He served his community. He paid into the system. And now the system is failing him because the state couldn't manage its budget. Let's talk about the specific tax mechanisms that are failing. California relies on capital gains taxes for a huge portion of its revenue. When stock markets boom and tech companies go public, Sacramento gets a windfall. But capital gains are volatile. When markets dip, revenue collapses. Worse, California taxes capital gains as ordinary income. So if you're a tech founder and your company goes public, you could be facing a 13.3% state tax on top of federal taxes. The combined rate can exceed 50%. Founders started planning exits before their companies even went public. They established residency in zero-tax states like Wyoming or Florida, then sold their shares. California got nothing. The state also relies heavily on corporate taxes. But here's the trick. Corporations are mobile. California's corporate tax rate is 8.84%. Texas is 0. Florida is 0. Tennessee is 0. If you're a CFO looking at a multi-million-dollar tax bill, moving the headquarters is an easy call. And it's not just about the rate, it's about the complexity. California's tax code is a nightmare. Compliance costs are enormous. Audits are aggressive. Legal fees add up. Companies are leaving not just because taxes are high, but because the entire system is hostile. By October 2023, bond rating agencies started paying attention. Moody's issued a warning about California's fiscal trajectory. They didn't downgrade the state's credit rating, but they put it on watch. That's a big deal. If California's credit rating drops, borrowing costs go up. The state has hundreds of billions in outstanding debt. Every fraction of a percentage point increase in interest costs taxpayers millions. And here's the kicker. Investors are nervous because they see the same thing we're seeing. The revenue model is broken. The spending commitments are locked in. The political will to make hard choices doesn't exist. Think about the irony. California, the fifth largest economy in the world, is facing a fiscal crisis not because it's poor, but because it drove away the wealth that made it rich. Listen, if this analysis is opening your eyes to what's really happening, I need you to share this video right now. Send it to your friends, your family, anyone who needs to understand the reality of what's unfolding. The mainstream media won't cover it this way. They'll spin it, they'll make excuses, they'll blame everyone except the people responsible. But you're here because you want the truth. So help me spread it. Hit that share button. And drop a comment telling me, do you think California can recover from this, or is it too late? I read every comment, and your perspective matters. Now let's talk about what happens next. Let's talk about what happens next because this isn't over. California has three possible paths forward. Path 1, reform. Cut spending, simplify the tax code, reduce regulations, make the state competitive again. This would work, but it requires political courage that doesn't exist. Every reform threatens a powerful interest group. Cutting pensions threatens unions. Cutting environmental regulations threatens activists. Cutting social programs threatens voters. No politician wants to be the one who dismantled California's progressive legacy, even if that legacy is bankrupting the state. Path 2. Muddle through. Keep borrowing, keep raising small taxes, keep making shallow cuts, and hope that economic growth bails them out. This is the most likely path because it's the easiest politically, but it doesn't solve the problem, it just delays the reckoning. Every year of muddling through adds more debt, more deferred maintenance, more structural problems. Eventually the bill comes due and it will be far more painful than if they dealt with it now. Path 3. Collapse. This is the doomsday scenario. Revenue continues to fall. Borrowing becomes too expensive. Credit rating drops. The state can't meet its obligations. Pensions get cut. Schools close. Infrastructure crumbles. It sounds extreme, but it's happened before in other places. Detroit, Puerto Rico, Greece. When governments promise more than they can deliver and refuse to change course, collapse becomes inevitable. Which path will California take? Right now, they're on path 2, muddling through. But the trend lines are pointing toward path 3. Here's what nobody is talking about. The exodus is accelerating. Every time California raises taxes or passes a new regulation to cover its budget hole, it gives more people a reason to leave. It's a vicious cycle. Lose taxpayers, cut services, or raise taxes. Lose more taxpayers, repeat. And the people who can afford to leave are the ones the state needs most. The ones who can't afford to leave, the working class, the poor, they're stuck in a system that's collapsing around them. So let's recap the logic. California built an enormous government funded primarily by a small number of high-income earners and profitable corporations. It assumed those taxpayers would stay forever. It ignored warning signs of out-migration. It expanded spending during boom times instead of saving for downturns. When businesses and wealthy individuals started leaving for lower tax states, revenue collapsed. The state's tax structure, designed to be progressive, became its fatal weakness. The budget deficit exploded. Politicians couldn't agree on solutions because every option threatened powerful interests. So they borrowed money, made shallow cuts, and hoped for a miracle. Meanwhile, real people, workers, small business owners, families, are paying the price for decades of fiscal mismanagement. This is the story of what happens when a government forgets that taxpayers have choices. Here's my warning. California's crisis is coming to other states. Illinois has similar problems. New York is watching wealthy residents leave. New Jersey is facing budget shortfalls. The same dynamics are at play. High taxes, high costs, aggressive enforcement, mobile taxpayers. If California can't fix this, no state is safe. And if states start collapsing, where does the burden shift? To the federal government, which means to all of us. So here's my accountability question for you, and I want you to answer this in the comments. At what point do taxpayers have a moral obligation to leave a system that's financially unsustainable? And at what point does a government have a moral obligation to stop promising things it can't afford? That's the real question California is forcing us to confront. And the answer matters because this isn't just about one state. This is about the future of how we fund government in America. If you care about this, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit the like button, share this video everywhere because people need to understand what's happening. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell me if you think California can recover, or if this is the beginning of the end. This story is still being written, and every day that passes without real reform brings California closer to a point of no return. The question isn't whether the collapse will happen. The question is how bad it will be and who will suffer most when it does. Stay informed, stay engaged, and hold your leaders accountable. Because if we don't learn from California's mistakes, we're doomed to repeat them. I'm Daniel Brooks, and I'll see you in the next one.